Well, what a busy morning it was. It's now past noon here Pacific time, but right around noon to cap the morning, the 49ers made their fourth pick of the day. Marques Sigle, a safety out of Kansas State who really fits what the 49ers have been building defensively. The profile for Marques Sigle is almost identical to the other defensive backs, Upton Stout, whom the 49ers brought in. He's obviously a little bit bigger than Upton Stout, but you can see here, Upton Stout drafted by the 49ers, Nick Martin, the linebacker, drafted by the 49ers, Malik Mustafa drafted last year. There's a whole heck of a lot in common between Marques Sigle and those guys. He's not very big, 5'11", 199, but he has an elite explosion score, 38-inch vertical leap, 10-foot broad jump, 10-foot plus on the broad jump, 4.37 40, 2.55 20-yard split, 1.54. That is awesome. 10-yard split for Marques Sigle out of Kansas State, who actually started his college career as an outside cornerback at North Dakota State. His first season for the Bison in 2020, he was teammates with Trey Lance. So that Lance season, 2020, that was the last one. That was the shortened one for North Dakota State. The big one was 2019 for Trey Lance. Siegel wasn't there yet, but he was there overlapping with Lance in 2020. Transfers to Kansas State, moves over to the safety position. The fact that he still has outside cornerback speed, and I've got a number here that is downright staggering for Marques Sigle. He was able to pick up more than 15 miles an hour. The exact MPH is 15.13 miles per hour at the 5-yard mark of his 40-yard dash at the NFL Combine. That was the fastest acceleration at the entire NFL Combine out of anybody. 15.13 miles per hour. And Marques Sigle outpaced everybody at the 5-yard mark. We see exactly what the 49ers want. They want this hair-on-fire explosiveness out of the back end of their defense. Yesterday, I wrote the article up on the San Francisco Standard, and this John Lynch quote is going to apply to today's defensive picks as well. They still have 3 more in the 7th round, but I'm going to scroll down here through the article on the Standard right here. So one thing that I noticed, and you could see the relative athletic scores right next to each other of Nick Martin and Malik Mustafa. I was like, these guys are a very similar player, right? Martin and Mustafa. Well, if we go to Marques Siegel's relative athletic score, it looks really similar to both Martin's and Mustafa's, and that it's a smaller player, but he is extremely explosive. So I asked John Lynch, is this a coincidence? Are you guys looking for the same type of player across multiple different positions? And Lynch's answer said, I think one thing we look for, we play a lot of zone defense. So how fast can you get back, plant your eyes on the quarterback and break? And then you go do some damage when you do break, and how fast can you close? And you guys see that with Malik, right? He sees it and he goes and he gets it. And Nick Martin has similar qualities. So albeit different positions, those are the type of players that we like. Now, on top of that, the 49ers also picked up Upton Stout. And now, of course, they have also picked up Marques Sigle, who is a certified dog out of Kansas State. He is not afraid to hit people. That's what the 49ers want. They want violence in the secondary. Upton Stout's interview was one of the best interviews that we had ever seen. I mean, the personality that came out of this guy, he says that he wants violence. He likes to put his nose in violence out on that football field. So now you've added Upton Stout and you've added Marques Sigle, just a couple guys who are going to be total pests on the back end for the 49ers. That is just the way that San Francisco likes it. Here's my summary. And I'll put this up on the screen just so you could follow along with the text. The Marques Sigle selection fits in very neatly with Malik Mustafa, Nick Martin, and the Upton Stout picks. None of these guys are big, but they're explosive as hell and aren't afraid to hit. Siegel's once an outside cornerback and then became a safety, so he can man the slot too. I think that versatility, that adaptability for the 49ers is really important. Against NFL offenses these days, you have to bring that safety position down to man up opposing slot wide receivers. If you don't have that type of flexibility in your defense, you will be exposed in the modern league. So the 49ers want that back-end defensive adaptability behind their huge offensive line. We can now move to the depth chart and see where they can slot Marques Sigle in. Remember that they signed a couple safeties. Siegel is going to compete with those two guys, Richie Grant and Jason Pinnock. Both players who are still young, but only on one-year deals for the 49ers. Pinnock might be a little bit ahead of Grant in the pecking order just based on the contracts of both players, but I think neither guy is guaranteed a roster spot, and neither is Marques Sigle as a fifth-round draft pick for the 49ers. So Will, just because he's a rookie and he's going to have to earn his spot on this football team, you could also probably put him into a nickelback position behind Saran Neal. Let's put him into that nickel spot, because I think that adaptability is key. Don't get fixated over exactly where the guy slots in on this depth chart. And we have to make the font a little bit bigger. We're going to have to shade him in green. There we go. Marques Sigle behind Upton Stout, Jair Brown, Malik Mustafa, Saran Neal's the specialist the 49ers picked up, Richie Grant and Jason Pinnock. All of the free agent signings are highlighted in teal. So the 49ers really set themselves up here to where there's going to be a lot of competition on the back end. Anybody drafted at this point is not guaranteed to make that 53-man roster. Right now in my 53-man projection, I actually have 58 spots taken. You could see it down here. That means that there are going to be guys cut. Maybe it's Pinnock, Grant, Saran Neal, Trey Tomlinson. Those guys may all be on the outside looking in. In fact, I should probably start making some of those cuts as we break down this 49ers roster, because when you look at it right now, there are way more players than there are available spots. And that is a good issue to have if you are the 49ers. If we talk about emulating the Rams model, in 2024, the Rams had 14 draft picks. All 14 of them ended up making the team. So that meant that a lot of veterans ended up being cut. They did a lot of their cutting before training camp even happened in the offseason. But of course, after camp happened, a lot of veterans were given their pink slips. So the 49ers are trying to get younger, faster, healthier, and I think most importantly, hungrier on the defensive side of the ball, where they were not good last season. Apparently, Mike says this guy is a major leader. And yes, he can play nickel. The snap alignments last year, this is from PFF, he played a lot of slot in 2024. 520 snaps in the slot, 196 snaps in the box, 36 snaps were deep. I would say that although he is adaptable, I would say that Marques Sigle is first and foremost a nickel kind of player. So you've added Upton Stout and you have added Marques Sigle. Stout is smaller, but Siegel's a little bit bigger at 5'11". I think you're going to have interchangeable box. I mean, you talk about the linebacker position with Nick Martin. Let's open up the depth chart again so you guys can see what I'm talking about. You can follow along in real time. Nick Martin right here, Malik Mustafa right here, Marques Sigle right here, and Upton Stout right here are all very similar type of players. There are going to be minute differences as far as size goes because of the positions that they're assigned to. But what the 49ers really want to do is give Robert Saleh as robust of a toolbox as possible so he can deliver very creative defensive calls and play downhill with a bunch of cannonballs behind a huge defensive line. So this is how the 49ers are bringing their defense back. It is an evolution of philosophy. I talked about it a lot yesterday. They used to go for very big defensive backs, right? Richard Sherman on one of the edges for the 49ers. I mean, he was 6'3". Richard Sherman is the prototype for big defensive backs. But here, now they're going for the adaptable, smaller players. I want to see what the wingspan here is on the size. Let me go back to the relative athletic score. But you remember Jimmy Ward? That's a player who Robert Saleh was very enamored with. We'll always call him a good football player because Jimmy could play the corner, he played outside corner, but he then moved to safety. And then the 49ers also moved him into nickel. And then he was really an interchangeable safety and nickel. There was a game against the Rams in week 5 of the 2019 season where that was the 49ers coming out party. I'm sure you guys remember that in 2019. Robert Saleh was really pumped up on the sideline. What did Jimmy Ward do in that game that was really special? He came down from safety and manned up with Cooper Kupp in the slot. Kupp played like 70% of his snaps in the slot for the Rams. Maybe in that early time, that was his third year in the league, it might have been even more than 70% of the snaps in the slot. And how the 49ers were able to shut him down, well, it was because Jimmy Ward was such a versatile coverage guy coming down from the safety position. So I would see Marques Sigle doing something similar in this regard. He's got 30.75-inch arms, which is actually decent arm length for a guy who's only 5'11". So I'm sure that the 49ers like that aspect of Marques Sigle's game. I'm going to see if we have a spider chart for him. 49ers, unless they trade up into the 6th round, by the way, do not pick again now until the 7th. So the spider chart is here. The arm length is at the 24th percentile. Obviously, they're not overly long arms, but considering the height, I thought that the arm length might be a little bit worse. I could put the here we go. We have it ready for you. I could put the spider chart up on the screen. You will see the explosiveness and you'll see the speed just jump off the screen here for Marques Sigle. The 10-yard split, the 40-yard dash, the vertical jump, the broad jump, that's all part of that elite relative athletic score, which we have right here. Mike is sending me all kinds of good graphics. What else do we have here? Physical safety who thrives in space and plays with controlled urgency. Max speed was 20.9 miles per hour, 85th percentile. Closing time, 1.3 seconds, 58th percentile. He's an explosive click and close defender with versatility to handle post, box, or nickel responsibilities. That is the versatility that I've been talking about. The top safety vertical jumps last year. Nick Amanwari, 43 inches. Gatan Crawford and RJ Mickens were both 41.5 inches. And Marques Sigle with that 38-inch vertical jump was third or fourth place if you count that second place tie. The top safety broad jumps. Nick Amanwari went much higher in this draft, 11 feet 6 inches. Marques Sigle, 10 feet 10 inches at the broad jump. So nearly 11 feet on the broad jump, as you can see on the relative athletic score for Marques Sigle. I have to hide the text title. You can see the broad jump there at the very bottom. So this guy's a hell of an athlete who can play nickel and apparently a really good leader. It's going to be exciting to talk to John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan about him. You know what this is? This is an R&D find, research and development. We've seen so many guys with elite relative athletic scores come in over the course of the past 2 years for the 49ers. One of them came in last year in Malik Mustafa, and that was a draft that ended up being highly successful. This is why I think the 49ers were very, very bullish about this 2025 draft class, because they truly believed that they had found their process, especially in these later rounds where they have a lot of picks that can unearth players who have skill sets that fit well into the system that they're running. Last year, and I have dual relative athletic scores here. This is Malik Mustafa's on the right side with Nick Martin's on the left side. I thought that there were a lot of similarities cross-positionally here. Nick Martin being a linebacker, Malik Mustafa being a safety. You could see the explosiveness for Mustafa, and obviously the size is not great for either of those two players. Well, then we quickly shuttle to Marques Sigle. Look at Marques Sigle's versus what we have for Malik Mustafa and Nick Martin. Those are very, very similar relative athletic scores. And they're similar in composition as well, not just the overall score. So Sigle, a little low on the size, but very good on everything else. Same thing here with Nick Martin and Malik Mustafa. The 49ers are building a defense full of these cannonballs. We're going to call them cannonballs, a defense full of cannonball players, dogs. We can call them dogs, guys who aren't afraid of contact. If we looked at Upton Stout's relative athletic score, it again wasn't all too different from the other two that I showed you. And those have been the 4 defenders that the 49ers have added to the back end, who I'm including in this sample while we discuss defensive construction. Mustafa last year, and then the 3 DBs / linebackers, 3 back 7 players this year. They've compared Nick Martin to Dre Greenlaw, who obviously was very fast. He was the fastest player on Arkansas's defense coming out of college. They've compared They've compared. Hold on, I have to open up one more relative athletic score here for the 49ers. But they've compared Upton Stout to K'Wan Williams. And I think now, as we slot Marques Sigle in, we can say that they've compared him to Jimmy Ward. In an ideal world, that's what the 49ers would want. Now, the difference is that Jimmy Ward, I think, was a little bit heavier. Probably 205, 210 for Jimmy Ward. We'll see how much weight Marques Sigle can carry when he moves to the NFL level and is part of an NFL weight room. But the vision for the 49ers is very clear. I actually had a tweet on some of this from earlier today. I think this is going to be a good one to put up on the screen because it's a good way to wrap up what we've seen over the course of the first, how many picks are we at now for the 49ers? 8 picks of this NFL draft. Got to take the screenshot and toss this up onto the screen for all of you. So we can add a Jimmy Ward comparison here to Marques Sigle, but the defensive players picked before this, CJ West, DJ Jones. CJ West was the first pick for the 49ers of this Saturday in the 4th round. Mykel Williams, the first overall pick for San Francisco in this draft. He's a lot like Eric Armstead, or, DeForest Buckner too, but I would say more like Eric Armstead for Mykel Williams because he's going to be playing that edge position. DeForest Buckner was exclusively at defensive tackle. That's why Alfred Collins is the DeForest Buckner. 6'6", defensive tackle. He's going to be a guy coming in off the interior. That is the analogy. That is the comparison. That's what the 49ers are shooting for here. Upton Stout, K'Wan Williams, Nick Martin, Dre Greenlaw, and of course, as I just said, Marques Sigle and Jimmy Ward. We may have to amend that tweet or just put out another one as we move forward. All right, any questions here? You got a little bit of time before the 49ers pick next, unless they trade back up. I'm sure that Mike is going to let me know if that happens. San Francisco's also drafted 2 offensive players, Jordan James, the running back out of Oregon, and Jordan Watkins, the receiver out of Ole Miss. Chris Mendez says the schedule is favorable. Run with quick route release will be the focus. Are you saying is the schedule favorable for the 49ers are playing offensively versus other teams' defense? Not really sure I understand the question, but let's keep the good questions coming, and I will answer them. Redbeard wants the 49ers to bring in offensive linemen. You can't just draft offensive linemen to draft offensive linemen, though. Maybe they like 3 of those guys in the top 10, but they didn't get them. And if you're just going to bring in a body at this point, if he doesn't fit the system and if he isn't a good player, that doesn't help you at all, right? I think signing somebody like Jedrick Willis might be the way that the 49ers go. You might go to a younger veteran scheme fit if you didn't find a fit that worked in the NFL draft. Because just, it's foolish to think that just because they draft somebody in the 7th round at offensive line that he's somehow going to fit. Now, maybe they do that and maybe he does fit, but you don't draft just for the hell of it. They're going to have to like somebody in the 7th round to do that, or like somebody in the 6th round and trade up to do that. I have some intel on Jordan James. I've got a guy, this is from somebody who played for the Oregon Ducks. I have a few texts right here. Called Jordan James an absolute wrecking ball. He'll be productive, doesn't get injured, pass blocks well. Physical as F. I'm not going to say the word right now, but that's the scouting report on Jordan James. I think that matches what the video gave you guys a little bit earlier. We've done these live reactions for every single one of these. Some offensive linemen, by the way, who are still available, since a lot of you are curious. Miles Frazier, Logan Brown, Chase Lunt, Cameron Williams, and Jake Majors, the center out of Texas. Obviously, the 49ers have already drafted a Texas player in Alfred Collins. So that is that would be interesting. 2 Texas Longhorns they obviously have that relationship with Steve Sarkisian, and Kyle Shanahan did go to the University of Texas himself. Longtime listener from the 209. I love that. Shaver Lake guy. I take questions really at random because they're coming in so quickly. There are a lot of you asking questions right now. I think that Jordan James is a very different type of player than LaMichael James. LaMichael was all speed. Jordan James doesn't have a whole lot of speed. He's more closer to a 4.6 40. He's a tough running back. I don't think anybody was talking about LaMichael James' toughness back in the day. They're talking about how much of a burner he was. Jordan James, it's funny, Oregon's program has changed a little bit. It used to just be the Chip Kelly blur attack for Oregon. Now they've got these, bulldog type of running backs, really tough guys, high floor guy in Jordan James, who the 49ers pick in the 5th round. Physical with great hands. That's another comment down here. Do all 3 defensive line picks project to start next year? Well, in my projection, yes. I think even Nick Martin is on the inside track to be the 3rd linebacker for this team next year. Upton, Stout. Now we'll see how Siegel and Stout compete, because I think there's going to be some crossover at nickelback there. But there used to be a whole lot of red in the defensive portion of this depth chart. There's not a whole lot of red anymore. There's 0 red. They've filled their needs defensively. Now we'll see how the players do. The one red cell left is offensive line. Funny enough. I really thought the 49ers would try to go for at least one of the developmental linemen earlier in this draft, somebody like Charles Grant. Even Arante Ursary has got some development to go, but they went defense with their first 5 picks. Defense, the more glaring need. Offensive line, I still think a need for the 49ers, so we'll track how they attack it over the course of the rest of this offseason. Yes, go watch my Jordan James video. I have reactions to all 4 of these picks. Frank Gore had a say on getting James. Jed York even acknowledged that. If Frank Gore approves of the running back, we approve of the running back. That's what Jed York said. Jordan James, not overly fast, only broke 3 runs of over 20 yards, but boy, was he a bulldog in between 10 and 20 yards, just like Frank Gore, and also really good in pass protection. Just a reliable back, and you need reliability behind McCaffrey and behind Isaac Guerendo. You guys want a link to the sheet? Yes, I'm going to put the link to the sheet in the comments section here. Here you guys go. It's in the comments section, so you guys can go check it out. Miles Frazier just got picked, so that's another offensive lineman off the board. It's funny because Jordan James is the same last name as LaMichael James. So 2 James running backs out of Oregon, but I don't think they could be more different in terms of prospects. If you're asking about Jordan Watson, he's fast. The receiver the 49ers got out of Ole Miss. 4th round pick, right? Was that the 4th round? Yeah, I think it was the late 4th round for the 49ers, or later in the 4th round. He's fast, 4.37 40. Guys, I have videos on all of these prospects, so make sure that you watch all of them. We're going 20 to 30 minutes on all these prospects as it comes in. Right across the street from Levi's. I'm about to head into the stadium right now for the end of the draft to talk to Kyle Shanahan, to talk to John Lynch, and we're also going to be able to talk to Tariq Ahmad and RJ Gillen, who are the 49ers' 2 personnel directors, the 2 scouting directors for San Francisco after this draft is over. So that's going to be exciting. We're going to get a lot of good intel on how the 49ers are operating, and then we will move forward into the undrafted free agency period of the 49ers roster building process. Chris Paul to the Rams. Well, apparently the 49ers liked a different linebacker better, Nick Martin. They got him yesterday. 8 picks in for San Francisco. On a larger picture scale, yeah, I see a lot of people complaining about the 49ers offensive line and the offense, and they didn't direct enough capital in that direction. This is the same offensive line. It's better, actually, because they no longer have Spencer Burford starting at right guard. That offensive line was in the Super Bowl for the 49ers in 2023. I hope you guys realize that. The 2024 iteration of the 49ers defense definitely was not a Super Bowl caliber iteration of the defense. Therefore, it's very simple. The defense was a bigger need for the 49ers entering this draft than the offensive line. I will say that I think that John Lynch and Chris Furster are more bullish on the 49ers offensive line than I am. I know that they're more bullish on the 49ers offensive line than the vocal contingent of people who are banging down the door for offensive line picks on social media. So I think that has to be taken into account. But just from the bird's eye view, defense was so clearly behind everything else on this team, that and special teams. 49ers used free agency to address special teams, and they're using this NFL draft to primarily address defense. Defense was just so clearly behind everything, including the offensive line. It didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out which direction the 49ers were going to go in this NFL draft. And with their first 8 picks, they have focused primarily on the defense. 6 of them have gone to the defensive side of the ball. 2 of them have gone to offense, reserve running back and a reserve receiver in Jordan James and Jordan Watkins. Defense was a priority, yes. I don't know if they're going to be the best defense this year. They've got a lot of work to do, but they also, I mean, with Robert Saleh, you've improved schematically a lot defensively. And so much of this has Robert Saleh's fingerprints on it. How do I know? Because Jed York has been telling us. Before almost every defensive pick, he was talking about Saleh being back in the building. So Saleh's getting his guys. Any team to win a Super Bowl has to be balanced. You've got to have a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense. They are capable of putting together a top 10 offense with this offensive line. They've showed us historically good offense with this line, even though I think the line could have used a lot of improvement. I think it's a testament to Brock Purdy and the testament to the separation the 49ers generated in 2023. They aren't capable, though, of winning a Super Bowl with the defense as it was in 2024, which is why we've seen those wholesale changes. There are also 3 picks remaining in the 7th round, and a lot of undrafted free agents will be coming through. And for anybody who says that the 49ers cannot pick up worthwhile talent in the 7th round, I show you Brock Purdy. I show you Juwan Jennings. 49ers are a walking example of this draft is far, far from over. So you're saying nothing about the offense improved from last year. This is almost certainly going to be a categorically incorrect statement because the 49ers offense last year was atrocious in several categories. One, an even bigger problem than the pass blocking was their lack of separation last year. They ranked dead last. So if you're telling me that the 49ers won't be better than dead last in average separation, well, then maybe your comment makes sense, but they've already retooled the receiving room. They picked up a speedster today in Jordan Watkins. Brandon Ayuk is going to come back at some point in 2025, so I think they're going to be better separating. And as far as the offensive line goes, well, they were missing Trent Williams for a lot of last season. So assuming that he's back, that's going to be better as well. I think that, and then we have to talk about Christian McCaffrey, right? He missed most of the season in 2024. So if he's back, well, yeah, then the offense improves. I don't see how you can go out and say that nothing about the offense improved when one of the biggest impediments of the offense last year was the injury situation, and that injury situation is obviously resolving itself entering 2025. Mike says the 49ers offense is fine as long as the O-line doesn't fall apart. Well, the good news is that the O-line hasn't really totally fallen apart for San Francisco since like 2020. It hadn't been a great line. I think the best line that they've had since that time was 2021 with Alex Mack at center. But 2020 was the last time this line just completely collapsed in on itself. When Hronis Grossu was playing center for the 49ers late in that, it was week 8 of that season against Seattle. They're on like their 4th or 5th string center. It hasn't been great. I think that Jake Brendel regressed last year. I think that we saw some particular struggles for him. I still remember the Miami game when the 49ers were trying to drive for the win late, and he couldn't pick up the game maneuver with Calais Campbell coming around. There's obviously other examples, and then they didn't have Trent Williams, so they're playing backup tackles there toward the end of the season. But I think there is good reason to believe that the 49ers can toss out a line that doesn't cave in on itself next year. I don't think it's going to be an all-pro unit. I don't think it's going to be the 2021 unit, which was an above-average unit. I don't even think it's going to be the 2022 unit. But Brock Purdy delivered record efficiency in 2023 behind an offensive line that ranked number 26 in pass block win rate. So you've got a superstar quarterback. They're obviously going to pay him this offseason. You got to get the separation down. You have to get the run game down. Shanahan has to regain his play calling fastball, and I think in that case, you'll be okay if you're the 49ers. Draft is still ongoing, though. They got 3 more picks. So we're going to talk about those 3 picks when they happen. I'm going to drop into the facility now at Levi's Stadium. Stay tuned. I have dropped instant reactions to all 4 of the 49ers draft picks today. Obviously, we've got the reactions from yesterday. Now we're going to get big-time content from the 49ers decision makers. So be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video. The latest draft pick is safety Marques Sigle, another dog. The 49ers have a type in that defensive backfield, and they are sticking to it.